of the Sunday morning, everybody. Welcome to this baby we call The Sweat, a show we bring you here Saturday and Sunday mornings from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Eastern Time on DraftKings Network and VSiN. I'm your host, Emerson Lotz, here for the next 2 hours, sitting alongside Mr. Steve Buchanan. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
You look wonderful and fantastic. Julian Edlow, once again, refusing to come into the studio.
This has been like a month.
This is getting ridiculous. I'm not going to lie.
But don't worry. He'll be in Vegas in a couple days.
Yeah, right? Producer Drew.
Just Vegas next week. Miraculous recovery.
Yeah.
Broadcasting live from Circa VSiN Studios for this very show. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Producer Drew was talking minutes ago saying, hey, Jules, let's talk about this game plan for when you go to Vegas to promote this show. You'll be joining us live on this show Saturday and Sunday morning next week. And you're like, no, I'll be traveling on Wednesday, the day Drew wanted to talk to you about this show. Yeah. It's just funny how there are excuses galore right now with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's March Madness. I would recommend a lot of people just try and do as little work as possible. I'm a master of it.
All right, well, we're going to put you to work in this show because we have quite a bit to get to. A sweet, sweet second round yesterday. Not a lot of upsets, a little disappointing. So we'll recap what went down. We'll also look ahead to 8 more games this afternoon. Some second round bets on this fine Sunday fun day. Our MLB division previews will continue with young Steven poking over to the American League this morning.
Only a couple days left till opening day, finally. The real opening day.
Second opening day that arrives on Thursday. Plus, Steve, your favorite NFL draft bets, where you think some of the young studs land on Thursday night, April 25th, but we will begin this show with the same way we do most of the time on Saturday and Sunday mornings. Let's work up a sweat. Let's see what you're warming up to. Either a bet, either a storyline, whatever direction you want to take this in. Jules, I will let you take the wheel. You are up first. Go ahead.
Well, let's just pick up where things left off yesterday with favorites going 8-0 in the tournament. We had a pretty wild stat from the first round. 12 underdogs won outright. That was the most since 2001. So that's kind of what happens in the second round. Eventually, chalk tends to steady out in this thing. That said, I like some dogs today. I think things are going to sway back a little bit. So just kind of the ebbs and flows of the tournament. You got to be ready for some of those days. Hey, dogs are barking in the first round. Well, at some point, chalk is going to come through. And I will say, unfortunately, the odds of all the favorites coming through were very poor late night when Oregon was up 4 with less than 30 seconds in that game and still find a way not just to lose, but not to cover. Any number you got Oregon at, whether it was between 3.5 or 7, not to cover that number in double overtime. That was pretty heartbreaking for Ducks backers like myself. But we have a good card today. I think we have some good spots for some underdogs that are catching a lot of points, and we will get to them throughout the show. Not to mention and not to forget, because this tournament just kind of keeps rolling, there's also Thursday games on the board. We have 2 of the Sweet 16 matchups that are on Thursday on the board, Creighton and Tennessee, as well as Illinois and Iowa State. So a lot of different betting angles for this tournament, a lot of different exciting storylines going back and forth with the dogs and then the favorites, and now a new interesting card today with, games like San Diego State and Yale that are going to be like watching paint dry, and everybody's going to be watching it and betting on it because it's to go to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, positive news for today is I think there's more potential for upsets because the average college basketball fan, maybe one with no rooting interest, is likely cheering for chaos or underdog stories the rest of the way, and yesterday provided little of that. Steven, what are you warming up to this morning here?
Saw some exciting news actually on Twitter. Remember Ames department store?
Yeah, I do.
They are coming back.
Really?
They're opening over 35 locations in 2 years.
Wait, this is like Ames.
This is worse than the
What?
This is worse than the Popeyes versus Starbucks.
No,
drink.
Which we have an update on the Starch Madness bracket coming up in the next block here. So Ames is like a J.C. Penney, right? My mother-in-law worked
kind
at
of.
J.C. Penney for
but like
30
nostalgic.
years.
Like I used to go there all the time when I was a young boy.
I love the smell of department stores.
Right.
I really, really do.
They're
And also,
making
my
a comeback.
mother-in-law would get me like 30% off sheets. And I'm talking like 1,000 count, like Egyptian cotton sheets.
Yeah.
I miss her working there. I miss that discount.
So
that's what you're warming up to.
No. I mean, that's just some exciting news I wanted to share with the masses. Julian went a little short. That's how you stretch the time a little bit in a segment. You bring up something just to cover a little bit. So Julian went a little short. He's sick.
I went wrong about what I had for breakfast rather than sharing information like that.
No, I mean, I'm sure that excited
You're not eating much right now because you're sick, Julian, remember?
Right. But you'll be...
I'm not sick. I'm just backing out of work. This is what you guys have said.
Anyways, so on DraftKings Sportsbook, they keep putting up more and more options for you to bet on before the season begins, MLB season begins. They have this start of season tab that just continues to expand. It's turning into the Cheesecake Factory menu at this point. There is this new tab that I've fallen in love with now called Division Wins. And this is which team in each division will have the most wins by the end of April. So you can go through here and say, let's go to the AL East, for example, which we'll talk about later in the show. Which team in the AL East will have the most wins in that division by the end of April? Love that because we're taking the Orioles. We've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. Love them to be the first team to win 10 games. So obviously I'm liking them to have the most wins in this division as well because the schedule that they have for, the couple days that they have in March and then the month of April is unbelievably laughable. I mean, they are not playing a game that finished over 500 until midway into April. Let's just quickly run down the teams that they will be seeing in the month of April. Angels, Royals, Pirates, Red Sox, Brewers, Twins, Athletics, Yankees. They are going to see all of those teams in the month of April. Every single game that they are playing in feels winnable at this point because I love this Orioles team and they're facing all of these teams that are either next to nothing in the offseason, are not going to be competitive throughout the year, and you can get plus 240 on the Orioles to have the most wins in the division in the AL East. Love that one there. Another one you can look at too as well, NL Central. Who has the most wins in this division by the end of April? The odds-on favorite here are the Reds. Like going with that too as well. We talked about the Reds a little bit yesterday during our division preview, what they did to their rotation. They brought in some power there as well. They also have a very favorable schedule during the month of April as well. So I would recommend going on there. Maybe you didn't get into the first of 10 wins. Maybe you didn't get the insane value of 30-1 on the Orioles there. There's just a couple of other ways that you can get into this here. They have monthly wins as well. The over-under on number of wins that you can take as well. Odds aren't as favorable here, like for the Orioles in this one here, to get over 16.5 wins is at minus 150, so obviously not the most attractive line, but just kind of go through here and just try to find some of these teams that have a favorable schedule in April. Maybe you play the over, maybe you play the under, but more stuff, Emerson, continues to go up here on the sportsbook. Obviously, the season's starting in a couple of days here, but still a lot of options to get into some preseason action here for Major League Baseball.
AL West preview coming up, AL Central preview coming up in the show, and AL East preview coming up in the show.
Sounds like the American League.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's right. We know you are not high on the Yankees right now. Is that still the case?
Well, that's correct. But we'll talk about that later in the show. That is correct.
Look at you, my sweet chinchilla. Have you guys been watching the Valspar at all? Jules, you probably have not been.
I've been reading about Ames.
I love that. I've been watching that.
Keeping up local department store news, and I haven't watched TV since 2010.
Okay. Well, since we're on the topic, and again, maybe like Marshall's wants to sponsor this show. Marshall's is a great spot to go for cheap dog toys, especially if your dogs are like mine and they just destroy the toys that you buy them, especially the ones that say indestructible. No way a dog can destroy this. Give my dog 5 minutes, and that toy is absolutely dead. So, floating around NCAA March Madness games, I'm a big golf guy. You guys know that by now. I'm keeping an eye on the Valspar, and this leaderboard right now is the absolute wild, wild west. Big names imploding while the little guy, like Creamy Cream, just rises to the top.
What?
Guy like
That's a weird...
Cashmere Keith. Keith Mitchell, man, went birdie, eagle to finish yesterday. I do kind of like him to win this thing outright, but 17 players with 18 holes to play are within 5 shots of Keith Mitchell. So the outright market right now is kind of like this roulette wheel. So I'll probably live bet this thing on my couch later this afternoon with Cheez-It crumbs on my chest hairs. But Xander Schauffele, I'm not going to focus on the outright market right now. Xander Schauffele, though, to finish top 20 at plus 115 odds on the DK Sportsbook right now. The tournament favorite he was. We all know, once again, the bridesmaid, never the bride last week at the Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass. Currently sits 2 shots outside the top 20, okay? He's been average this week. However, his Sunday scoring average is 68.6. The Copperhead course, this course, the Snake Pit, those last 3 holes are damn dangerous. They're extremely difficult. The average score is over par for the entire field the first 3 rounds this week. But this guy shows up on Sunday. It's going to be real quiet. He goes off around 10:45. He's off early. I expect him to use that strong Sunday scoring this season for a solid backdoor top 20. And Stephen Buchanan, congratulations. It is true.
There it is.
Ames is coming back. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been by far the best working up a sweat segment in this show's 6-month history.
Yep, there you go.
Folks, coming up.
Giving out way too many free plugs the last 2 days.
It's okay.
Well, I just want people to know they could join us here, spend some money with us, and sponsor us. Be quiet, be quiet.
I've given away Popeye's information for free.
8 tickets.
Come in the office and stop us.
8 tickets were punched to the Sweet 16 yesterday. Which teams Julian believes are in good shape to make an even deeper run? Lack of upsets yesterday, the first round of the NCAA tournament, and another favorite prevailing in the Starch Madness bracket for Gojo and Golic. I do believe the first round is wrapped up. You see on your screen the 3 seed Sonic Cherry Limeade with 75% of the vote, just crushing Panera Lemonade in the first round. We got a thumbs up from Steve Buchanan over here sitting off camera. You'd be insane to vote Panera Lemonade over Cherry Limeade. Man, you can find a local mom and pop place with Cherry Limeade. Oh, music to my ears. Is that the way you would have voted, Jules?
I mean, I can't claim that I've had either of these things. Are these really popular? But in general, in life, Cherry Limeade sounds delicious. So I assume that's where my vote would go. But I have not been to either of these establishments and ordered those beverages.
Well, make sure you tune into Gojo and Golic tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Eastern time here on DraftKings Network, Monday through Friday show, by the way, for the latest on the bracket, who's moving on, and how you can get involved with voting and advancing your favorite sweet, starch-filled snacks or sugary beverages. The theme surrounding yesterday's Saturday second round action, though, we're talking real men's basketball here, Julian. We've already mentioned it, lack of upsets. 7 of the 8 winners were lower seeded teams. So number 11 seed Oregon looked like it might provide a late night upset, right? But running out of gas in the second overtime of a loss to Creighton, 86-73. Lone exception coming from the Zags, blowing out Kansas. And then NC State here, Jules, never won more than 4 straight games during the regular season. And after outlasting who many people considered this year's Cinderella in Oakland in overtime, the 11 seed Wolfpack have now won 7 in a row during the postseason. And yesterday, you admitted it may be time to stop sleeping on the Wolfpack. Will that be the case moving forward?
I mean, I said yesterday I would wave the white flag after fading NC State or backing them to run out of gas at some point in time. And actually, the overtime was much appreciated because I said I would go to the over in that game. And thankfully, it cashed because we went to overtime. That game was a good matchup for NC State. Let's see who they get here in the Sweet 16. I think it's going to get a lot tougher for them, but the number is going to reflect that. But they're going to get rest again, so they'll this is the time really that they get to freshen up because they were coming off that 5 games in 5 days and had to prepare for the tournament. Now they actually get to get some real rest and prepare for an opponent. So I think the running out of gas narrative is done with NC State. If they go down in the Sweet 16, it's going to be because they lose to a better opponent. But they have some really nice pieces. I'm surprised that they couldn't get it together earlier in the season, particularly with how talented DJ Burns is.
Oh, man, he's been awesome.
He looks like he's like a big sloppy dude, but he's got great footwork, great touch around the rim, and his passing is ridiculously good. So he's going to be a tough matchup, whether it's Colorado or Marquette. He's going to be a tough matchup for the bigs on either side, which, by the way, if Colorado does upset Marquette, Lampkin, the big dude on Colorado, similar build. So those two might clash for like an earthquake type of situation in the Sweet 16.
Just 2 big beef eaters going to town on each other in the paint. There is nothing better about college basketball. By the way, DJ Burns Jr. has reached double figures in every game of his team's postseason journey. This is incredible postseason continuing for NC State, Jules. In terms of some of the drama, you had to like the 2 overtime games yesterday. One of them was that NC State game. It is sad to see Oakland's 1-game run, I guess, come to an end here. But the other overtime game late last night, not 1, but 2. I mean, this drama is what you want in March Madness, despite the lack of it yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, the overtimes were great theater, great entertainment, for sure. One helped me out from a betting standpoint with the over in Oakland, NC State. One hurt me with getting 5.5 with Oregon.
Was that a tough beat? That a tough beat for you?
Some people say it's not a tough beat when you have an underdog going to overtime because overtime's where underdogs go to die. But I don't know. I mean, when you're covering for 40 minutes of the game and then you're covering for a 5-minute overtime and you just get blown out in double overtime, That's a tough pill to swallow, especially when you stay up till 12:30 Eastern, when you got to get up early on Sunday morning and work. But nonetheless, it was a great game. Oregon, you could just see Oregon completely run out of gas in the second overtime. They did not. They had it the whole game, and they had nothing going their way in the second overtime. Didn't know how to find shots. But the entertainment value was absolutely there. And most bettors did cover with the dog in the first game. Oakland, most people, if you bet it, had 6.5 and covered, although I think it closed 6, so it technically wound up landing on a push. But I would say most people, if you had an Oakland ticket, wound up cashing in that one.
And then you had Kansas limping to the finish line here. Jules, I don't think I've ever seen a Bill Self team look as lost as it did yesterday on defense, dude. The Jayhawks had no answers for the Zags pick and roll, and the Zags look like the Zags that we've been used to seeing here, a staple of the postseason for, the past decade plus?
Well, I have a lot of respect for Bill Self overall, but not a ton for how he handled yesterday. I mean, he essentially lied to the committee by saying that, they were going to be healthy for the tournament, knowing that they weren't. He very quickly went to rule McCullough out, their best player. And then after this loss, he says, I've been thinking about next season for about a month now. You're saying that because you lost. Like, if you won, you weren't going to say it was great to win. I've been, looking forward to next year, but here we are going to the Sweet 16. So I thought that was a little bit of a cop-out. You lost a player. You still have a lot of other good players. You're Kansas. And you got mopped in the second half. That was the last 5 times that Kansas has been priced as an underdog this year. They've lost all 5 of them by 8 or more points. They've lost 4 of them by 20 plus. So when they're priced as an underdog, they've been getting just straight up blown out. So I didn't love that answer by Self, but Gonzaga's playing really well right now.
Yeah, dude.
I will say they're likely going to get Purdue if Purdue can beat Utah State today as a double-digit favorite. Purdue entering the tournament was minus 170 to make the Elite Eight. Now they're minus 135. I don't know why the price would have shrunk so much. The path is still the same. You got to beat Utah State, and you got to beat Gonzaga. I think getting on the discount on Purdue at minus 135 to make the Elite Eight, getting a discount, assuming they can win today, minus 135 is going to be a pretty good number against Gonzaga. I think that's where the matchup gets a little overwhelming for the Zags next week.
So it's the 9th straight Sweet 16 appearance for the Zags. But if the Bulldogs do continue to shoot lights out, Jules, I mean, how much of a chance would you give them advancing to the Final Four, which if again they continue to shoot lights out here, I think it would be the most impressive Final Four run that we've seen from them.
For sure. The Zags turned a corner in January. They switched the lineup up a little bit. And as we may recall, got a huge win in Lexington, Kentucky when I came on this show and made one of my biggest bets of the year on Kentucky. Loser. But good for the Zags. They've been really good since then. I think they're going to struggle with Purdue. And Creighton or Tennessee would also be a really tough matchup for them. But you got to credit the way they're playing. They're playing much better than they were the rest of the season. They're going to be a shorter underdog against Purdue than they would have a couple months ago. Defensively, I think they're going to have a really hard time if they get Purdue. But on the offensive side of the ball, they're putting pressure on everybody. Kansas had no answers for Gonzaga yesterday. They came out of the gates really in both halves and played really well. Kansas just caught up in the first half and then totally let go of the rope in the second half.
A little different yesterday when we're looking at the results for all the favorites. So 6-2 ATS. We're thinking we're going to see something similar today, or maybe we'll actually get some chaos on this fine Sunday of March Madness.
No, I think dogs are going to bark a little louder. Got to bark a little louder than favorites going 8-0 straight up. But Colorado is a pretty short dog, although that number is growing against Marquette. I like Marquette, but we'll see what happens there. But really, James Madison, Grand Canyon, I think those teams are not just live to cover, but live to win those games. And then who knows about Yale and San Diego State. Total's 129. We know that San Diego State can go chunks of minutes without scoring, potentially multiple times a game. So I think they're live in that one too. I think we will see some dogs come through today. Favorites aren't going to continue to roll the way that they were yesterday when you so boldly called that the underdog
there it is.
Barking. Of course, favorites sweep the board.
Yep, exactly. Good stuff. That's why I say never listen to me. We'll listen to you more when we get more best bets on today's 8 games. But coming up next here, folks, we're poking over to the Diamond, where Corey Seager and the Rangers are looking to run it back, why Steve says that is not happening. are on the Sweat live Sunday morning. Good to have you here, folks. The American League West has been responsible for the last 2 World Series champions, young Steven. So we're talking the Texas Rangers winning last year, Houston Astros securing the crown the year prior.
Minus 339 run differential for the A's.
Yeah. You know, Steve,
What the hell?
I've seen a lot of people actually predict that, and it's not that bold of a prediction. The A's will not be as bad as many expect them to be. They'll still be bad, just not as bad as you expect.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Like in the second half too, like they actually started hitting better. They have some like good young hitters. Like they have a minor league roster. Like there's no doubt about that at all. But I agree. I do think that they will be a better team, and they have to be a better team because they are about to knock down the Tropicana, a historic hotel in Las Vegas. Is about to come down. Very sad.
I think I stayed there once when I was living in Salt Lake City.
Twice.
I drove over there, and I've stayed there. And is the Pink Flamingo still there?
Yes.
Or is that gone? Okay, I used to be an Imperial Palace guy, but let me tell you something. When I stayed there for 2 nights, it cost me like $20.
Yeah.
It was excellent.
Yeah. Well, now you can stay at Circus.
Yeah, I love that. Sign
That's
me
where
up.
Julian's staying, I guess. Circus.
Yeah, I know,
got a
because
very
he's
small
all of a
budget.
sudden he's healthy when there's a trip to Las Vegas on the line.
Yep.
Back here to the AL West, which, hey, we were out in the West. And you know what? Vegas is going to be the home of the A's eventually.
Right.
The division race here has been pretty straightforward in recent years. The Astros have placed first in 6 of the last 7 seasons. So when we're looking at these teams in this division and we're dialing in to win totals right now, which team would you target in this department?
Oh, Angels under. Good God. I mean, this team is putrid. This team is an absolute joke. Like
Mike Trout's not going to put the team on his back. If he does, he's going to get injured.
He has missed, and I'm just spitballing here off the top of my head. He has missed, I think it's like over 250 games over the last 3 seasons. Like it's been really bad.
I think some people like him in the home run markets just because it's just him, and if he stays healthy,
well, sure, but then
away.
also if you look at his strikeout numbers, like they continue to climb every single year. Like the strikeouts have been like a major problem for Mike Trout. Like I'm not going to take away like how great of a player he is, but like it has just been anything but that over the last 3 years. But yeah, so under 72.5 wins for the Angels. I mean, this team did almost nothing in the offseason to improve this team at all. Like the big rumor that was going around for the Angels is that Blake Snell was interested in joining the team. Like God knows why he'd want to do that, but he didn't.
It's like I'll go to the NL West instead.
Yeah, he went to the San Francisco Giants, so that didn't come to fruition. You look at this rotation right now, like your number 1 starter is Patrick Sandoval, then followed by Griffin Canning and Reed Detmers. Those are your top 3 rotation guys. Like that is not going to get you much of anywhere.
Yeah, like the biggest move of the offseason was bringing in Ron Washington as the team's new manager.
Yeah, that probably was. And then Mike Trout, when he is healthy, is going to have no protection in that lineup. Anthony Rendon doesn't even want to play baseball, so he's not going to offer any protection.
He's on record saying that, people. He's on record saying that.
And you know what? I like the honesty from players, but like that's taking it too far. I don't want to hear from one of my highest priced guys, one of the guys who has the highest contracts in baseball. I don't want to hear from him that he doesn't want to play baseball. Like that is just like so detrimental.
No, he's stealing money, bro.
Yeah, that is so detrimental to the team. So you got Rendon who doesn't want to play. And then if you go through this lineup like 1 through 9, you might be lucky to have 3 guys that hits over 20 home runs in this lineup. There is no power in this lineup at all. I don't see where the Angels are going to even get 70 wins at this point. So give me under 72.5 wins for the Angels.
And like I've seen and I've read that they've rushed a lot of their players up too.
Yes.
To the show.
Yep.
So who knows?
They don't want to spend money, so bring these guys up, right?
You don't think these guys play a little extra like motivated or pissed off because, you know, Shohei's gone and they can kind of prove that they can still do something without him?
I mean, I guess you could say that.
Yeah,
but
I know that's taking a trip down Narrative Street, which you don't like.
No, I don't like those at all. But like, a lot of these guys are just like still they're too green to be up in the majors.
Yeah, you're
just going to get overpowered. So like, it's great to have that mentality, but I just don't see it happening.
In terms of a player, MVP caliber player
Yeah.
in this division, there are multiple guys to choose from. Are you going to America's team here? Are you going to Julio down by the schoolyard?
So he is definitely in the conversation, but I am betting on somebody who I also have bet on for the MVP overall, and that's Corey Seager. We talked about this last week here too. The numbers that Corey Seager put up last year were absurd. When you also factor in that he missed 43 games last season. For somebody who missed 43 games last season, he still hit 33 home runs. He knocked in 96. He scored 88, and he had 42 doubles. 42 doubles after missing 43 games, and that was the second best mark in the league, only behind Freddie Freeman. That is absolutely insane to be second in that category and missing that many games. Gets on base a ton, had a .390 on base percentage here. Like, I don't like the Rangers to repeat. I don't like them to win the division this year, but if Corey Seager remains healthy, like, that is one of the best bats in that division, one of the best bats in the American League, quite frankly. So I like Corey Seager to win MVP. I bet that already. That's at 10-1 right now if you want to get in on that. He's right in the mix with a couple other guys in that division as well. Jordan is at 8-1 right now. Julio Rodriguez is at 6-1. But I think Corey Seager, with the amount of power that he has some great protection in that lineup. If he stays healthy and he starts putting up those type of numbers again, it's going to be hard not to like him for the MVP conversation.
And better late than never, it seems, for the Rangers this spring, too, and with Corey Seager, because yesterday he played shortstop. I think it was his spring training debut because he underwent surgery to repair a sports hernia in January. So he's been slow to rehab, but like many of these guys, it all kind of falls back to health here and if they can stay healthy. So if he can, I think that's a tremendous pick by you. Do you have a tremendous pick for a division winner here? Because we see the Astros as -110 favorites, then your Rangers, then America's team, +285, Seattle Mariners, Angels +4,500, and then we're not even going to talk about the A's at +25,000.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be a little bit of a homer here, but I do think that the Mariners have a legit shot to win the division, and they've been in this conversation for the past couple of years here. I will put this rotation up with almost any other rotation in Major League Baseball. I really do think they have one of the best rotations in baseball. Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Brian Miller, and then Brian Wu. Like, I really think that this is one of the best rotations in Major League Baseball. In the offseason, they brought in some power bats into that lineup. They traded for Jorge Polanco. They brought in Mitch Garver. Those are some good power in the middle of that lineup there. They brought back Mitch Haniger as well from the Giants. There is just so much power in this lineup. And then they made some improvements to their bullpen as well. Like, there's a lot to like about that team. It's just that division is so tough because you have three legitimate teams, kind of like the AL East. You have three legitimate teams in that division. But I think that the Astros might take a little bit of a step back this year. That could open up the door for the Mariners. And then, obviously, you got the Rangers, too, as well. It's going to be very, very close, I think. But I think that the Mariners are going to end up running away with it this year.
Okay, so when we're looking at maybe how the division kind of shapes out come the end of the season, you have these trifecta bets that you can make on the DK Sportsbook. So let's see. So Seattle to potentially win the division there, you could get, let's see, Seattle finishing first, maybe Houston second. I don't know, Angels third. You can get plus 2,800 odds on that. What else do you like? Or, Texas first, Angels second, Houston third, plus 5,500. I don't know. What would you want to do in this department? What are you most confident?
Nothing that you just said. Like, that's
just giving options here.
Giving options. Might as well go outside, blow your nose on that $100 bill and just throw it out the window because it's not going to go anywhere.
That's 100 units for me. I'm not doing
that. Is 100 units for you. But if you're going to go with what I said here and you want Seattle to win, like the first one here that you have is Seattle, Houston, and Texas. That's at plus 600. I don't think that that's horrible here because like I said, I think this is going to be really, really tight. So you could go with a Seattle, Texas, Houston at plus 850. But these are tough to play. You have to have three of these situations kind of fall into play here. It's like one of these big season-long parlays almost, right? Because these guys have to finish in this spot here. So I'm probably staying away from these trifectas here, but they are something if you do feel confident about. You can get some pretty long odds on how this division will shake out.
I mean, let's work
Just
our
don't
way.
include Angels or Oakland in any of your top three.
No, I didn't mention Oakland. I'm just saying if you want to kind of think outside the box a little bit, how much would you consider thinking outside the box in the AL Central? So this division, Steve, I believe there's going to be more parity in this. Maybe it's a little wide open. I don't know. You tell me in terms of win totals right now, and maybe some of the moves these teams made in the offseason impact your decision and what you would bet.
I mean, the team that is favored to win is the team that I like to go under their win total with the Minnesota Twins. They just have such a brutal rotation. I don't know how they're going to win this division. You have Pablo Lopez as your top starter. Fine. Nice. I like that. Then Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, Chris Paddock, and Louis Varland. Like, there's not much to like after your number one starter on Pablo Lopez. And then they didn't do much to change their lineup. They brought in an aging Carlos Santana, and this team is just not going to hit for average at all. Like, I know batting average isn't as important as the stat as it used to be, but like, this team is really going to struggle to hit the ball, I think, and they're really going to struggle in the pitching. So you're going to tell me that they're going to win the division here? Mm-hmm. I think this is a team to go under here. I have no faith in the Twins here, and maybe as the show goes on, we'll talk about another team that I do like in this division.
All right, yeah, let's do that. We'll finish up our conversation about the AL Central. We'll work in the AL East as well as we wrap up our American League preview. Opening day on Thursday. Marvin Harrison Jr. raising some eyebrows by not working out at Ohio State's Pro Day. The team Steve believes is in good position to catch the Buckeye down the board. NFL draft bets coming up next. The NBA playoffs are almost here. Less than a month remains in the regular season. Postseason set to begin here, Julian Edlow, on April 16th with the play-in tournament. And today's NBA schedule, which features 6 contests, have a lot of those playoff teams on the slate, including the West leading Thunder right now versus the Bucks. You got Golden State Warriors, Timberwolves on there as well, Cavs and Heat. A question about the Bucks, though, for you. How much better have they been playing? Have they really figured this thing out? They nearly beat your Celtics. What was it, last week without Giannis? And they had the late game comeback. I think only lost by 2 or 3, which is only going to fuel that national media narrative that the Celtics can't close out games and struggle late in the fourth quarter. But the Bucks, how much better are they now compared to weeks ago when we were crapping on them with their new head coach, Doc Rivers?
Yeah, the second half showing in Boston without Giannis was encouraging. The improvement on defense is encouraging because the initial, whatever it was, 3-7 start with Doc, they weren't playing defense. And they've gotten a lot better on defense now, even with Giannis off the floor. They pretty much stay the same defensively. They just have a pretty big drop off offensively because of all the sets that they can no longer run. So Milwaukee's playing well. It's another sort of measuring stick game for them at home. We want to check on Giannis's status. He is questionable. I would be surprised if he sat. Betting splits and the number kind of indicate he will play. Let's see. We got 57% of the bets for 65% of the money laying the 3 points with Milwaukee at home. I would lean that way. I would probably play it. I would just want to check that Giannis is in first before making that bet.
Okay, and then you have the Heat as a 4-point favorite at home against the Cavs. This could be a potential first-round matchup, right? And, you know, Miami's going to be motivated because the Heat's magic number here to secure a play-in spot is just 1.
Yeah, Miami, per usual, a lot of names on the injury report. Nobody too significant. Hawkes Jr. is questionable, though. Tyler Hero still out. No Duncan Robinson. Martin, questionable tag as well. So the Heat always seem to have all these moving pieces that make it tougher to cap games. And no Donovan Mitchell still for Cleveland. This is a harder game to bet. I would be more confident in betting Milwaukee. I'll probably pass on this game. I would lean towards taking the points with Cleveland, but a little bit more of a lean here and a lot more moving parts in the injury department in this game. Makes it a little bit tougher to come out of this with a confident play.
Hey, real quick before we get the best bets today, I see the Nuggets and the Thunder are still tied atop the West in terms of conference seeding. Nuggets minus 285 to be that number 1 seed. You can get the Thunder plus 260. Do you know how these schedules kind of stack up to each other, like down the stretch? Do the Thunder have a more difficult path?
I don't have the strength of schedule in front of me, but I like Denver's had easier games. Like you saw, Denver was able to rest Jokic and Murray. Was that last night or Friday night?
Yeah.
Because they were playing Portland. So Denver's taken it easier for sure. They don't seem to necessarily care as much if they get the 1 seed, but they feel like they can still get it with giving their guys some rest in some of these easier games. So boring. I know the number strongly indicates it'll go to Denver. And I would agree with that. I don't think OKC not only has a harder path. You see today they have Milwaukee on the road on the schedule. They also just have the less experienced squad. So I think Denver, once they kind of get to the finish line, if they want to get it, they'll play Jokic, they'll play Murray in the games they need to, and take control of that top spot.
Okay, in terms of today, 6-game slate again. So what do you have in terms of best bets? Anything on the card?
Haven't bet anything yet. Lean to Milwaukee, but want to see the injury report. The Minnesota Golden State game is just going to come down to Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert. If they play, I don't mind laying 3 with Minnesota at home. If they don't, I'll try and jump on Golden State as quickly as I can. And I'll probably play Naz Reid's point prop because he's been awesome with Karl Anthony Towns out. It'll be higher if Gobert and or Edwards sit. It'll be lower if they play, regardless, I think it'll be a fair number, and I'll play it wherever it is in that range. Also, Pacers have been going under on some big numbers lately. Pacers-Lakers is the last game on the slate. 241.5. I would probably look under there.
All right, a lot of young talent on the floor tonight. Going to be a lot of young talent finding new homes here soon in late April in the NFL draft. Let's see, we're breaking down here now the draft order from 4 to 12. A lot of people expecting the top 3 teams to go quarterback here, which is why it gets pretty interesting once you hit the 4 spot here. And Steve Buchanan has returned to the desk, and Marvin Harrison Jr., widely regarded as one of the best wide receivers we've seen in recent memory in this draft here, Steve. Some even argue he should be taken earlier than 4. Maybe the Patriots consider him at 3 here.
I mean, they say like he's like the top, he should be like the top prospect in this draft, like quarterback aside, like he is the top guy.
Absolutely. So right now, when you look at the odds to be the 4th pick in this draft, he is minus 200 with J.J. McCarthy following him at plus 330. But if you wanted to somehow pop up to the number 3 overall pick, which I think we know the Patriots strong lean towards quarterback, but you can get him at plus 425 there to go to the Pats at number 3 overall. What would you do here with Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of NFL bets?
This is really tough, honestly, because there's a few scenarios that they have here. Because if you look at J.J. McCarthy as the 2nd overall pick, well, then if that's the case, then that's not Arizona making this pick here, right? That's more likely the Minnesota Vikings potentially making this pick here, because they have said, they've made it very clear that they want to be in a top 5 pick because they want a quarterback here. Like, it really wouldn't make sense for the Cardinals to be drafting J.J. McCarthy here. What if the Patriots swoop in and end up taking Marvin Harrison? Like, we all know they need a quarterback. But again, like, Harrison is one of those talents that, I feel like we hear this at least once a year, but he's one of those talents where it's like, you can't pass up on this type of guy here. I know obviously that they've been linked to Drake May and whatnot. Yes. That's why, May is the overall favorite to go number 3, which is where the Patriots are picking here. But it really is tough to do. And then also, let's just say that Harrison is gone at number 3. And then the Cardinals come around. Maybe they're taking Neighbors instead and taking the 2nd overall wide receiver on the board here. So this is a really tough one. I feel like it would be Harrison, because if it is Arizona picking, then they should be taking Harrison here. But also, like, the Cardinals need a lot of help on that defensive line too as well. So this is a really tough spot here, because there are guys that you should be going to just based purely on talent, but there's also other needs that Arizona needs. Or do we have Minnesota picking here? That's where I think it gets really tough at number 4, and I think this is going to be, as we get closer to the draft, really a pick that we're going to be dissecting more and more.
Jules, where has this J.J. McCarthy rise up draft boards, where has this come from here? You had reports yesterday saying, yes, the Vikings will be aggressive in trading up for the Michigan quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know. It reminds me a lot of Will Levis last year. Who's going to go 4 to the Colts. And then, we're staring at him all night on the live shots in the green room. And he goes back to the hotel room and has to come back to the green room the next day because he went in the 2nd round. We get this every year to some degree. Obviously, the top 3 guys are going to go very high. We'll see if it's 1, 2, 3 or not. But, like, you look at the tape, it's like Caleb Williams is awesome. Drake May is awesome. Jaden Daniels is awesome. J.J. McCarthy. Well, I know he didn't do too much, but trust me, he's really good. Like, there's a guy like this every year, and I would much rather, this is me personally, but I would much rather have a Michael Penix who's, like, done something. I know he had the injuries, but he's shown that he can stay healthy in recent years. I think this is mostly smoke at the moment, and it's going to turn into something we can fade as the draft gets closer. But he could still go 1st round. Maybe it's just a lot later than we think.
Yeah.
And one other thing, just based off what Steve said, if we're looking for like a Hail Mary plus money bet, Marvin Harrison Jr. is not a lock to be the number 1 receiver off the board.
Interesting.
Malik Neighbors was considered an equivalent prospect coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. He lost the what's the award? Is it the Biletnikoff for the top receiver in college football? He lost by 1 vote to Marvin Harrison last year. and he's tested really well in everything he's done so far, it'll probably be Marvin Harrison, but it is not far-fetched to say that Malik Neighbors, who will probably be huge plus money, could be the first receiver off the board, depending who makes that pick.
Yeah, a lot of intrigue around that 4th overall pick with J.J. McCarthy and Marvin Harrison Jr., who some say may have hurt his draft stock a little bit by not practicing, by not showing his skills, flashing his skills in pro day and at the combine. 8 more teams will punch their tickets to the Sweet 16 today. Jules tells you which dogs will be barking on this fine Sunday afternoon. Kicking off second hour of The Sweat. Once again, a show we bring you here live Saturday and Sunday mornings, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time on DraftKings Network and VSiN. You see this man's face with us quite a bit. Julian Edlow just blowing his nose, still battling, but will be healthy enough to fly to Las Vegas on Wednesday. Shocker. We have 8 games today, Jules. We have 8 more teams that will be punching a ticket to the Sweet 16. And one of the games involves the Dukes taking on Duke. And I believe you said on this show yesterday, you've already said on this show today, you think the Dogs will be barking, will be biting, and nipping at pockets because they think treats are in said pockets. How live are the Dukes to win outright as underdogs today against Duke?
I think they're very live. They dominated that game against Wisconsin from start to finish. That was a game that, if you were waiting for the Wisconsin run, it just didn't happen. James Madison completely controlled that one from cover to cover. I was impressed with their poise, how well coached they were, and really just how they passed the eye test. Because if you watch that game, they totally looked the part. And, their first game of the season, they went to Michigan State and took down Sparty outright. Their last game of the season now, they dominate another Big Ten team in Wisconsin. Now they're going to get a crack at Duke. A little bigger, a little more talented. Not going to be quite as easy. But the way that they looked, maybe I'm falling into a trap here, but I think they looked very good against Wisconsin and have capable talent and athletes to hang around in this game. So I'm not playing them on the money line, but I think they will be live in this game. Give me the 7 with James Madison.
All right. Well, we have also Houston in action. So number 1 seed Houston, little Lone Star State showdown against Texas A&M. Obviously avoiding betting Houston at the ridiculous odds on the money line. So that's just straight up not smart sports betting. But would you back the spread and or total here in this game, Jules?
Yeah, no, I did play Texas A&M plus 10.5 yesterday. I think 10 is fine as well. We know, Houston came out and spanked Longwood. That's great. But we know that Houston plays at a slower pace, which can tend to help the underdog in these spots. And Texas A&M is no slouch. These teams played in the regular season. I think the spread was 9 or 9.5 and got bet down. Texas A&M kept it close and covered. But we know how good Houston is. But tempo, 348th. As good as they are, and they rank 17th in offensive efficiency and 2nd in defensive efficiency, as good as they are, if you play that slow and there's that few possessions, teams are going to stay in games. And Texas A&M, you look at them, they rank 31st in terms of offensive efficiency. They can stay in this game and score some points. They rank 269th in tempo. So if you're telling me we're going to have this slow of a game with a team as respectable as A&M, double digits seems a little bit excessive to me. So give me the Aggies to hang around here. I don't think they win outright, but those numbers alone tell me that there's going to be limited possessions in this game, making it tough to break away by double digits.
Houston beat Texas A&M. Was at 70-66 on December 16th. That was on a neutral floor, and that was before the Aggies really got their act together. No one, Jules, looked more in control, in my opinion, and more impressive Friday than the Lopes of Grand Canyon here. So take me inside this game against Alabama.
I've been preaching about the Lopes all year. I have a ticket on them to win it all at 500 to 1. Do I think it's going to cash? No. But can I buy off of it at some point? Sure. Maybe I'll take a little bit of Alabama money line here. We'll see. But this matchup, I've looked at it a lot of different ways. I would lean towards them covering, but I think the play here is Grand Canyon's team total over 81.5. I'm confident, win or lose, that Grand Canyon is going to score some points, and here's why. They rank 63rd in terms of offensive efficiency. They just put up 75 points against the St. Mary's team that plays the way Houston and Texas A&M play. They have one of the, I think they're top 10 in slowest pace and tempo in the country, but Grand Canyon found its way to 75 points. Alabama, tempo, 9th. They get up and down the floor. We saw it against Charleston. And defensive efficiency, 112th. So Alabama just scored, 109, gave up 96 to Charleston. Go back and look at the points Alabama was allowing before that. They'll let opponents over 100 consistently. And I know that's the SEC, but Grand Canyon can score. So I lean to taking the points. There's going to be a lot of possessions in this game. So I'll just take those lot of possessions and say that Grand Canyon's going to get to at least 82 points in this game.
Yeah, I think some folks believe that Grand Canyon's experience and confidence could be enough to take down Bama straight up. So maybe just grabbing those 6 points, maybe grabbing those 6 points too, isn't the worst. Go ahead.
No, I would say one of Grand Canyon or James Madison wins today. I think one of them gets through.
Hey, look at you, Johnny Bold prediction. Welcome to the club, my sweet chinchilla. It was not Jules.
Predictions not work well for you yesterday. Oh, here come the underdogs. Favorites go 8-0.
No, dude. All right, we got another game to talk about. Sorry, man, we're out of time there. It was not surprising to see Marquette get off to a slow start when Tyler Kolek returned, right? As the team had to adjust to his long absence there. So do you think they have everything together in order to pick up a win today against Colorado? So they're 2.5-point favorites, Marquette.
Yeah, so just going through the numbers here, I lean Marquette. I wish I bet it at the opener. It's moving Marquette's way. Like you said, they adjusted a little bit with Kolek back. They had to find their stride. They did so in the second half against Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky plays at a fast pace, really good scoring. Colorado's coming off a track meet against Florida that they didn't win at the buzzer, but right before the buzzer. This is going to be a different animal, a little bit tougher. Big East, tougher defense. Florida was missing their big man that got hurt in the SEC final against Auburn. Again, Colorado's good. Preseason, they were a team that was supposed to contend with Arizona in the Pac-12. They're kind of finding their stride, playing up to the hype now. Marquette, just too balanced, too good, and with Kolek, too balanced. So we'll see if I wind up playing this one, but it would be Marquette or pass for sure.
Yeah, Colorado playing its third game in 4 days, just poured it out in the track meet against Florida in the opener. Clemson holding New Mexico below 30% shooting in what amounted to be their best defensive performance of the season. How do you like their chances of repeating said defensive performance against Baylor?
Yeah, Baylor's a different animal than New Mexico. New Mexico can be good. They can also be really bad, just like essentially the rest of the Mountain West. Baylor's really balanced on both sides of the ball. They showed when you take, a team like Colgate and try and attack, that's just not going to work. Baylor blew them out. I guess I was on New Mexico. I guess it was smart to buy low on Clemson in the first round in that spot. Now I'm going to, sell high on them and go with Baylor here. Bet up a little bit like Marquette. Wish I got it earlier. This is more of a lean, but I think Baylor should be able to break away in this game. They're far more balanced on both sides of the ball. They're far more tested with the schedule that they played on a daily basis in the Big 12 versus what Clemson did in a weak ACC. Clemson's had its moments this season for sure, but Baylor's the far tougher team. I think they should be able to break away with some margin here. Baylor does come out of the gates kind of slow, so maybe you look for Clemson to come out hot, take advantage of it, get a better number live on the Bears in game. But much like Marquette, this is going to be Baylor or pass for me.
Okay.
It could be a close game throughout, but eventually I do like Baylor to pull away.
And the top overall seed, we have UConn just blasted Stetson in the round of 64 on Friday. UConn, one of 3 number 1 seeds in action today, along with Houston. We've already talked about that, and Purdue as well. Taking on Northwestern, the Wildcats outlasted Florida Atlantic in overtime to advance inside the Barclays Center. I think that was more of Florida Atlantic and that brain fart at the end of regulation here. How ugly could this one get for Northwestern today?
Well, I'm not betting Northwestern, put it that way. Haven't played anything in this one, but UConn has the ability to just blast anybody. And, Northwestern coming off the overtime win, they got really hot in the second half. If I play anything in this one, it'll be laying that 8 you see down there in the first half with UConn to just come out of the gates and be ridiculous again. This is the best team in the field by far. The team that everybody was worried about knocking them off, Auburn, falls to Yale. The path is wide open for UConn, and Danny Hurley has them locked in. Like, it doesn't matter who they're playing. You got to win by margin or he's going to get on you. So I would say UConn comes out of the gates hot again and lay the 8 first half if I do anything. You're not going to see me bet against UConn in any scenario for as long as they are in this tournament. If they go down, I'm going to have to see it to believe it. And I'll probably, even though I have all the futures on them, I'll probably keep backing them in various different ways as we hopefully keep going.
Okay, well, we will break down Purdue, Utah State, and Yale, San Diego State coming up with you later in the show. Also, maybe look ahead to some Elite 8 and Final 4 futures with you. But first things first, oh, baby, after the break, we return to our American League division previews. The Orioles flying high. Steve likes them first to 10, but what about to win the division? Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Buchanan has returned, which can mean one thing and one thing only, at least this morning, although you did talk some NFL. You are back to continue our American League division preview.
You know what's great?
What's great?
This is going to be the last baseball segment that we do before the season actually opens. So next week when we're here talking, we're going to be talking about actual games.
Maybe the last baseball segment we do before Ames opens stores again.
No, it's 2 years. 2 years.
Oh,
for
it's
Ames.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Okay, so we'll talk the next two baseball
Hopefully the show's
seasons
still
before,
around for that.
Before.
Because we could do a live show from Ames.
Ames, your name right here. Not an ad, but could be, baby. Welcome back. And welcome back to the Sweat, and welcome back to There's No Beating Around the Bush, the most atrocious division in baseball. We touched on it a little earlier in this show, the AL Central. So I know you were taking the Twins under.
Yeah.
When we're talking win totals here. With a little injury luck, though, they could be legit contenders. Answer me this. The White Sox could be the worst team in Major League Baseball this season?
No.
No?
That's the Rockies.
Okay.
We talked about. See, you don't listen to what anybody
I do
says
listen.
on
I
this
do
show.
listen.
No, you don't.
I'm just bringing it up by asking a different question so we can kind of reset.
No, I gave that bet out a couple of weeks ago. The worst team in Major League Baseball is going to. No, you don't. The worst team in Major League Baseball is the Colorado Rockies, and that's something you can bet on DraftKings Sportsbook. The White Sox will be close. They'll be very close, especially after they traded Dylan Cease. That rotation looks even worse than before, but the worst team in Major League Baseball, mark it down right here, is the Colorado Rockies.
Who are we thinking for a potential MVP out of this division then?
This is...
this is going to be gross, isn't it?
No. Well, here's what's going to happen to me. I am either going to win a ton of money off this division, or I am going to be on the bench with you, homeless outside in Boston, because of this.
Come sit on my bench. I got a fresh pizza box for you.
I am so heavy on the Royals this year to win the division, to make the playoffs, and then you have Bobby Witt Jr. too, who really should be the MVP of this division. We really kind of saw the breakout party for him last year. Hit 276, 319 on base percentage, 495 slugging, had 30 home runs, 96 RBIs, 49 stolen bases through 158 games last year. This kid's only 23 years old. He's going to turn 24 during the month of June. And what I'd really like to see from him last year is that he really started to cut down on the strikeouts from his rookie campaign when he came up 2 years ago, making a lot more contact. Already has 4 home runs through 15 spring training games. I think we're going to see even more from Bobby Witt Jr. this upcoming season. But love him a lot, like the Royals a lot to win that division. I think they made a lot of solid moves to play in a division that is very winnable. Really, you could make a case, I think, for almost every team to win that division, besides the White Sox. But I think what the Royals did this offseason, added to that rotation, added a little bit to the lineup, added a lot to their bullpen. I think that is a team to be the team to beat in that division.
If Bobby Witt Jr. can deliver, it's like a 6th worst season. And
crazy.
become like an MVP finalist in year 3, no doubt would solidify his status as one of the best players in the world, right?
Without a doubt. He was one of the top prospects in Major League Baseball for a reason. He has shown it since he's come up. Like I said, really cutting down on the strikeout. If he makes more contact, if he continues to cut down on those strikeouts and he's making more contact, he is going to be one of the best hitters in baseball.
All right, so who do we like to win this thing?
The division?
The division.
Yeah, I do like the Royals. So when the Royals were when these lines first opened, the line for the Royals to win this division was 14-1. As it stands right now, it's all the way down to 850. And I mentioned that they've made some changes to that rotation there. They brought in Seth Lugo. They brought in Michael Wacha. Not like earth-shattering names, but like good guys that should give you innings and guys that should go out there and give you some quality starts. They made some changes to that offense as well. They brought in somebody like Hunter Renfroe to hit near the bottom of the lineup here, but he's going to bring some good power to this lineup. They should get back Vinny Pasquantino, who, if you remember, went down with a season-ending injury early last year, but this is somebody who can easily hit 25 home runs, knock in like 80, 90 runs, and that was a huge part that they missed in that lineup last year. So I think there's a lot to like about this Royals team that, quite frankly, is still being very undervalued right now, in my opinion, when you have teams like the Twins, who I don't think are going to go over anywhere at this point, and they're way overvalued. Like, they're minus 110 to win the division. That's absurd to me. So I'm taking a big underdog here, going with the Royals to win that Central Division. That's going to be one hell of a sweat all season long, but I think they could do it.
I think best case scenario, too, going back to those pitchers you mentioned, like Lugo and Walker, if they combine for, let's say like 300 innings, ERA around 4, maybe under 4, really give Kansas City a boatload of like competent innings, competent frames that it really lacked last year.
Without a doubt. Like they got Cole Reagans, who was a Cy Young candidate in the second half of the year. So him at the top, and then you got some inning eaters behind him. Like I think that's a rotation that can definitely compete in a putrid division. If the Royals were in any other division, I wouldn't even be looking at them. But in that division where there's so much open, it is not as close as people are making it seem. That's why I like them a lot.
The AL East, meanwhile, is anything but putrid. And you had the Orioles last year winning this thing, 101 wins. And Steve, I look at some projections from some of these hardcore baseball websites. Some of them have the Orioles finishing third in the division this year, behind the likes of the Yankees and the Rays. Is that insane?
That is insane. I really do think that that's insane.
So do they repeat this performance?
I think this looks pretty solid. I think I would swap the Blue Jays and the Rays, because you got to remember too, like the Rays, like they're always there, right? They always like make these small moves and everything. Like they dealt away more and lost more than they brought in this year, and I think that's what's really going to end up hurting them. Like there's no more Tyler Glasnow. We already saw him pitch for the Dodgers earlier in the during opening day, part 1 over in South Korea. They've lost a lot in their pitching department. The lineup has always been okay. It does enough to get by, but I think the Blue Jays will leap over the Rays here. But I just love this Orioles team. This Orioles team is basically what you saw last year, minus a couple of guys that you didn't really need to begin with. Like there's no more Kyle Gibson. He's obviously with the Cardinals now. There's no more Adam Frazier because they're bringing up one of their 1,500 top prospects that they have from their farm system. Like they're in a position where they just sent Jackson Holliday down to the minors. He's going to start in the minors league, obviously toying with his service time a little bit here, but he's like the number 1 prospect overall. And it's just their plethora of prospects that they have. So you have all this youth, a couple of guys get into their second and third years, like Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson's playing in his second year. So you put all those guys together for high, as well as they played with very little service time to begin with. Bring all these guys back in for a full season now, and then adding in some of these other top prospects that they have, like Colton Cowser, who's another one of their top prospects.
Is that their number 1 prospect? Because they have that number 1 prospect.
Cowser?
Yeah.
No, Jackson Holliday is the number 1 prospect.
That's it. That's who it is. Okay. And they all, you've seen their headshots? They all look the same. They all look like they were made in this like factory and just built to play for the Orioles.
It's actually kind of crazy. Like Adley, Jackson Holliday.
They're all twins.
Gunnar Henderson all look the same. It is kind of creepy. But that being said, like there is just so much to like about this Orioles team. Like they built this team up for the past few years, and like now they're cashing in. And like I wish actually I knew what the average age of the players were on that team, because it's got to
be like 22.
It's got to be in the high 20s, like mid to high 20s.
And they're all a year older, Steve, as you mentioned. They're all a year's worth of experience more under their belt. They brought in Corbin Kearns,
right?
While trading,
I didn't even mention that.
Yeah, while trading for him for things that they won't miss, at least immediately either. It was a great deal for him. Right now, in terms of MVP or a stud player in this division, there may not be a more stacked division when it comes to star player. We know all the star player the Dodgers have themselves, but man, this division top to bottom, you can find guys on every team.
You can, and I'm going to stick with the Orioles here. I think we're going to see a real breakout season here from Gunnar Henderson, who's playing third base for the Orioles here. You look at what he did last year, 28 home runs, scored 100 runs, knocked in 82, 10 stolen bases. He's got a little bit of everything here, but getting another year under his belt here, hitting in this dynamic Orioles lineup, there's just nothing but good things that should be happening here for Gunnar Henderson for this upcoming season. So again, I just love everything to do with the Orioles right now. They are tied with the Yankees to win this division. The Orioles were about plus 200 before. Obviously with the injury news to Garrett Cole, that's kind of knocked that down a little bit here. It's gotten some more money on the Orioles, so plus 185 for the Orioles to win this division. I'm just kind of really low on the Yankees here.
Yeah,
they already got some injuries creeping in. Garrett Cole's going to miss a few months. Aaron Judge has a couple of things he's dealing with already. You take away those two big guys, like this team looks pretty lackluster all of a sudden. This team does not look like a team that's going to be overly competitive competitive in a very tough division. Like obviously you add Juan Soto, that's fine. You know, any lineup that Juan Soto goes into is a major implication, and it's going to do wonderful things for that lineup. But the rest of the lineup is kind of, sort of okay. Like no one really blows you away. They're already saying that Alex Verdugo is making a ton of issues over with the Yankees. Haven't
Like
even
in the
started
clubhouse?
in the clubhouse.
That was starting
Already.
People loved him when he first got here to Boston.
Yep.
And then started having some beef, I think, with Alex Cora.
Yep.
But real quick for the trifecta. So you like Baltimore, and then Toronto second, and then Tampa Bay third. So you could get plus 2,200 odds right now for that to be.
Yeah. And I think that's like, if you're going to do one of those trifectas, like obviously there's a lot that has to happen here, but that's the one I'd be looking at there. I like that one a lot.
All right, good stuff, man. Appreciate you being here. I'm going to miss you when you leave. We will welcome in Jeff Ulrich next because we're poking over to the Valspar. You have Kashmir Keith in the lead, who's in a prime spot to hunt him down atop the leaderboard. folks, let's hit the links because Valspar, Copperhead, Jeff Ulrich, one of our gorgeous golf gurus here at DraftKings Network. This course, Jeff, has been absolutely chewing up the biggest names. And then you look at the top of the leaderboard. So I think there's about a dozen and a half so number of guys who are within 4 to 5 strokes of Keith Mitchell, who had that incredible finish last night. But let me tell you what, this has not been your typical tournament where you're thinking, oh, 5 strokes is doable. This is like the Players last week where guys were going low. A 5-under round has probably happened maybe only once or twice this week. I don't have the stats in front of me. But Jeff, why do you see the big dogs struggling here? And why have we seen some of these lesser known names towards the top of the leaderboard? Hell, you had a guy like Sam Burns, who's won this event multiple times, missed the freaking cut.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a couple different reasons. We're coming off a big event, and you know when the big event comes as a letdown, and I think we've seen that from a lot of the big players this week. I'm not overly shocked that there was high variance with a lot of missed cuts and things like that. But then the other part of this is Copperhead has always traditionally been a tough course, and I think the tougher the course, the higher the variance as well. And they've made it even tougher. They grew the rough out a little bit. They took it up almost an inch over last year. They grew it in. They brought it closer into the greens. They just made the course tougher. And then you add in a little bit of poor weather this year, and I think it just played even tougher than I think they probably were thinking it would. So, there's a couple different factors, but certainly the variance here has been crazy. As you said, like Keith Mitchell yesterday, even his low round, he needed to hole out from the fairway just to shoot 66. Like, that's insane. But that's what you have to do around this course. You have to make shots. Like, you have to either get really hot with your putter. You got to start chipping in. You got to start just making insane shots because that's what you need to do just to make birdie at Copperhead right now. So, yeah, there's a lot of variance, but there's it's hard to shoot low. But there's, someone could come out and shoot like +8 who's in the lead today as well. Remember that. So I still think you're going to see a lot of movement on the leaderboard. We have seen players come from behind here a lot too. That's another quirk of this course.
Jeff, you know who was not hot with his putter yesterday? Justin freaking Thomas. He opened the tournament yesterday, opened the third round, 1 shot back, opens up his third round with a birdie. Nice little flop shot there on 1. And then the remaining 17 holes, he goes 9 over. He lost like 8 strokes or something like that to the field on the greens. When he had a putter in his hand, his brain went to liquid diarrhea. He had 38 or 39 putts. It was the worst putting performance I've ever seen. He missed a putt within a foot, Jeff Ulrich. This guy appears to be broken. So does his lifelong childhood friend, Jordan Spieth here. And as some of these events we've seen them coming up on the schedule that those two have had success on, I'm fading the hell out of both of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think that, Spieth has looked okay at times, but he's certainly not been in top form. This round by Thomas is something else. Like, you really start to wonder if, maybe there's just so many cracks that you can't get it back together. He did. I mean, look, we have to maybe perhaps give him a little bit of leeway here. This is a player who was looking really good after 2 rounds. The approach game is pretty good. Everything else, off the tee wasn't great, but he looked okay after 2 rounds. I mean, maybe it's just one day, but man, like you said, if you're that broken with the putter, that seems like potentially we're looking at another 2-month long fix for a guy who's already been trying to come back from a year-long slump. So it's going to be another tough sort of climb here for Justin Thomas, man, but it did not look good. He's, as you said, these guys have hit their 30s now. I mean, certainly you can have a ton of success after 30, but I think it does become a little bit harder for some of these guys to sort of pull out of these slumps. They've already had a ton of success. Things are a little bit easier in life now. Do you still have the motivation? So we're going to see from Justin Thomas over the next few months because he's gone winless for over a year now. And now he's got this putter issue to deal with. All
right. In terms of winning, you think Kashmir Keith closes this thing out? That was, Jeff, and we talked about it off camera a little bit yesterday. Folks, the 3 closing holes on this course are known as the snake pit. They're not supposed to be as easy as Keith Mitchell made it look yesterday. He birdied 14, parred 15, then went birdie on 16, 17 and had that hole out eagle you've already mentioned on 18. The guy missed it because there was like a bug in his eye or something like that. But I don't know how much value there's left on betting him. Is there anyone else you would take for outright? Because I said at the top of the show, it's a roulette wheel right now. Cam Young almost looks like there could be some value at plus 750 there if you wanted to take that shot.
I mean, and the thing is, Mitchell showed that, like, when you hit really good shots around Copperhead, you still get rewarded, right? That's why it's such a good course. This is a really underrated venue, in my opinion. They should be playing bigger events here every year. But when you hit good shots, even in the snake pit, you can make birdies. It's just that, like, Keith Mitchell is one of those players who, when his irons get hot, I mean, he can absolutely hit it to 5 feet from basically anywhere on the course. And like you mentioned Cam Young, I mean, if there's another player chasing him right now, I mean, I'm going to throw out a couple names, but Cameron Young is probably the one guy who can match Mitchell in that regard. He gained over 5 strokes on approach last week at the Players. He was an absolute disaster with his putter at the Players as well, but he's flipped it around a little bit. So again, I think that for a guy like Cameron Young too, like at some point it's going to happen, right? We've seen him in this position so many times over the last 2.5 years that at some point he's just going to break through. And it's not like Keith Mitchell, as good a player as he is some like infallible leader here. The guy's won once on his career, and it was like 4 or 5 years ago. So, Mitchell is a shaky leader still. He's a guy who can get really cold with his putter as well at any point. So maybe he kind of peaked a little bit too early here as well. Mm-hmm. I think Cameron Young is sensible at plus 750. I don't know if there's a ton of value on it. I would definitely prefer like plus 1,000, 3 shots back, but certainly not a bad number. I'm going to throw out Adam Svensson at plus 3,500 as well.
Of course.
This dude has really been ball striking it well. And you look at his putter, he's at -6 while losing strokes putting. I think if anyone else can kind of get hot underneath these guys at -6, I think Svensson is capable of a low round. I really do. I think he's capable of doing something like Keith Mitchell kind of did yesterday. So Svensson at plus 3,500 would kind of be my other target.
Not a shocker. We should also mention he's Canadian and you are Canadian, and you tend to do this from time to time.
Huge bias.
Okay, so we have Houston next week. Then there's the Valspar. And then, finally, the first major of the year, the Masters. And one of the coolest parts of Masters Week, in my opinion, Jeff, is the Champions Dinner, which is held each year 2 nights before the start of the tournament. The previous year's champion gets to pick the menu. Jon Rahm absolutely nailed his Champions Dinner menu, which I think I also found out this week from the guys at Barstool, that I think he has to pay for this dinner. He has to pay for everything. So this year's menu is mouth-watering, all right? And he's got all the flavors of Spain, and it's really honoring his homeland with a number of tasty dishes here, including Mama Rahm's classic lentil stew. Did you have a favorite? Did you have a favorite on Jon Rahm's Champions Dinner menu?
I mean, look, he's going with the tapas for the appetizers, which I think is it's great. I think that's the classiest thing of this menu. Like, I mean, the tapas is just the perfect appetizer. If you've ever been to a tapas restaurant, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think most people have.
I think a lot of people haven't, though. But it's a fun time. But so, I mean, I think that's like the highlight for me. I'm digging this puff pastry dessert. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm kind of a dessert guy anyways. Custard, anything with custard in it, I'm kind of in on. I think this is really good. When you look back at the last couple menus too, the dessert options have been, I'm just gonna say a little bit shaky. I'm just gonna say shaky. Like, I think DJ went with like apple pie.
Yeah.
Apple pie is fine if you're like, it's a Sunday night and you just need like something to like have a regular dessert. Not at the Masters though. This puff pastry custard, it sounds really good by Rahm. I like it. I think it's a classy choice.
Well, hell, speaking of DJs, you even had Tiger Woods zinged DJ for his menu that year after he won the Masters in November. And he was like, looks like we're having sandwiches at dinner tonight. But we have DJs on the screen. We have Scotty Scheffler here. Now, Scotty Scheffler, in my opinion, last year nailed it. His menu had a little something for everyone. Loved the tortilla soup. Firecracker shrimp, which producer Drew's like, oh, that's like going to Applebee's. I said, no, dude, you have to keep in mind, even something as simple as like his sliders, right? Cheeseburger sliders are going to be the best quality meat, best quality cheese, best quality bread. But yeah, DJ's, you could probably lose me with most of that. Although Oh man, I would definitely do the pigs in a blanket.
See, I would say DJ's the main course is fine. Filet mignon, that carries everywhere. I mean, that's I'm absolutely fine with that. But then like the appetizers and the first course is as a house salad or a Caesar salad, kind of feels like you're just at a budget wedding or something like that. So I'm not a huge fan of DJ's either. Like I said, the filet mignon is fine. I think Scheffler's was okay. It's a little bit like you said, we mentioned, it's a little bit of the Chili's feel, but I think it's a higher class Chili's. Chili's is absolutely fine.
It's great.
Well,
Bottomless chips and salsa too.
I think
Jeff.
it's like a high-end Chili's feel. I think that's okay.
All right.
Neither of them.
Jeff, we gotta go.
Neither of them are super creative.
Okay, Jeff.
They're not super creative.
We gotta go. I love you. More basketball next. People around the country, especially on social media, were pretty fired up after seeing the 13 seed Yale upsetting Auburn. Will now take on San Diego State today. So everyone's on Twitter, right, saying Yale men's basketball, tagging Yale MBB. Turns out those notifications that are blowing up for Yale MBB, you're tweeting the wrong people, Julian Edlow. That's the Yale Molecular Biophysics and Biochemistry account, all right? So later today, when Yale upsets San Diego State, you're going to want to tag Yale M basketball instead. Are you following me here?
No, I was actually tweeting at the correct account. My other hobby besides college basketball happens to be molecular biophysics and biochemistry. I think it really sharpens the mind. I enjoy those things very much.
Absolutely. And me being a coaching minor, I kind of know exactly how you feel. You targeted subjects in college that would help you shine here decades down the road on the sweat. So in terms of that game, though, here, Jules, for the Aztecs, this is not unfamiliar territory. So they were in the spot last year, part of that magical run to the Final Four. For Yale, though, just the program's second ever round of 32 appearance after previously advancing in 2016. So do you think your bio bros can once again rise to the occasion and shock the world? They're 3-point underdogs. Five and a half point underdogs for the game. 3-point underdogs for the first half there.
Yeah, I mean, if these nerds can beat Auburn, they can beat San Diego State. Again, like it's how it's how Yale did it against Auburn. Generally, you have to kind of come out and take control of that game and keep it close throughout. You're not going to just make a comeback against a team like Auburn that is so talented and plays with pace. They did. Yale was down 7 at halftime, down double digits in the second half, and they came back and won that game. It was super impressive. San Diego State, kind of a nail-biter win against UAB. They play extremely slow. They have only one player that can really carry the offense in Ledee and everybody else around him. Now, Ledee is going to be a nightmare matchup for Yale to get the big bodies to cover him. I think Ledee is going to have a huge game. I would lean San Diego State. I don't think lightning strikes twice with Yale, but this is going to be a really slow-paced game. I would look under, but man, that total is so low. I think this is one of the toughest games of the day to bet. And a little bit of a snoozer of a nightcap here, the last game of the night.
Yep. And the level, we're going to talk about a snoozer. We saw what Purdue did in the first round last year, but the level in which they played all season, Jules, there was no question this was a top 3 team in the nation. That's not the level we saw them play in the first round. That level was even higher because after that first round exit last year, Zach Edey, the Boilermakers, they look like they are on a mission, and they are sending a strong message to the rest of the field that they're not messing around this year. At least they're going to try to not to. So Grambling State was just in the way the first time, and now Utah State is on deck. What do you like here in terms of betting this game, or are you looking even further ahead for Purdue?
Well, they were probably trying not to mess around last year, too, and they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson.
Well, you F around and you find out, big dog, and that's what they did.
They seem a little bit more locked in. They seem a bit more poised, like they learned from their mistakes. I have no play on this game. It's a big number. I do obviously think Purdue gets through. So I'm going to look to the futures market. I'm going to look to the Elite Eight here. Pre-tournament, Purdue was actually, you had to lay the most juice out of any team to reach the Elite Eight. They were at a UConn. UConn was minus 160 to go to the Elite Eight. Purdue was minus 170. Purdue's now minus 135. I don't get why they're going backwards. Just because all they've done is beat a 16 seed like they were supposed to. They're a double-digit favorite today to get through Utah State. I think they do. And then next weekend in their Sweet 16 game to reach the Elite Eight, they would get Gonzaga. It's a losable game, but you're kind of getting ahead of it and taking the minus 135 money line with the Boilermakers. Again, more of a numbers play, but I don't know why Purdue's number would be going backwards here. Maybe it's because of the prospect of playing Kansas, who would have been probably a better matchup, I guess. Gonzaga playing with some pace, playing well, but I'll go out ahead and take Purdue minus 135 to win their next 2 games here.
All right. Well, speaking of looking ahead, we already have 2 Sweet 16 games on the board, Jules, that we know of. So it's going to be Illinois and Iowa State next Thursday, March 28th. Iowa State, 2.5-point favorite in that game. Right now, what would your early take be, and do you have an early lean on this one? Keep in mind, Illinois is the team that my wife has in her bracket to win the whole thing, okay?
Okay, that'll help push me towards Iowa State then, where I was leaning. So Illinois got a pretty fortunate draw to the Sweet 16. You beat Morehead State and Duquesne. They probably haven't shown handily, but you can't fault them for beating the teams put in front of them. But they haven't beaten anybody that's for real yet, I would say. Iowa State pace down matchup against Wazoo. Those 2 teams really slow in tempo. We know Iowa State's got an elite defense, but Washington State, 27th in defensive efficiency. Now the matchup against Illinois, yes, elite offensively, but 81st in terms of defensive efficiency. Iowa State is first in terms of defensive efficiency. Not even Houston, Iowa State. So if Iowa State can slow down this Illinois offense, I think they're going to be able to get whatever they want on offense. That was Iowa State's clunker offensively. It was against Washington State and they survived. I think they're going to look good offensively in this game. So I would lay the 2.5 or look to Iowa State on the money line. I think they're going to get through here against Illinois, who finally slows down offensively and has some real defensive issues exposed.
What about the second Sweet 16 game we know of right now? Would you give the edge to 3-seed Creighton or to 2-seed Tennessee? We saw what happened between Creighton and that double overtime thriller against Oregon last night, and then Tennessee was able to handle business in the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, holding off Texas in the second round yesterday.
Yeah, whoever won that game last night, I was going to be backing as a dog against Tennessee in all likelihood, and it was Creighton. I think this number may grow, though. The early money on the betting splits on VSiN is showing some Tennessee money coming in, so I'm going to wait and hopefully get Creighton at a little bit better of a number. Tennessee just doesn't cover much. They really had to hold on to beat Texas. Tennessee's been horrible against the spread in the tournament under Rick Barnes historically. And you look at them here, they're great defensively, solid offensively. I know the balance with Creighton is there. So I don't think we'll see kind of the holes like you did with a Texas who was right there. But you look at Texas, they're 60th in defensive efficiency. They couldn't ultimately get there. Creighton's got the balance it takes to win in this tournament. 12th offensive efficiency, 24th defensive efficiency. They have the size to hang with Tennessee, and they can score much better. Creighton wasn't even hitting their threes last night, and they somehow pulled that game out. If they're hitting their threes against Tennessee, who Tennessee is a terrible three-point shooting team, then I think that Creighton can absolutely pull the upset here in advance.
All right, got about a minute and a half to go in this show, Joel. Just for anyone tuning in now, we hammered most of the round 2 bets that Jules likes earlier in the show, so feel free to take the tab and kind of rewind it. Watch 2 full basketball segments already in the show, but would you like to remind people some of your favorite bets for today before we wrap up?
Yeah, 3 plays. I got James Madison plus 7.5. 7 is fine against Duke. Passed the eye test the other night. This team is for real in my mind, and Duke has plenty of holes. So I think the Dukes can hang around with Duke. Another dog, Texas A&M plus 10.5. The 10 is fine with me as well. 2 defensive teams, 2 teams with slow tempo. Houston's the better team, but they won this matchup earlier in the year by 4. I think it's going to be a similar type of score. I think there's just fewer possessions, slower pace, tough to see someone pulling away by double digits. On the opposite spectrum, Alabama plays super fast and plays no defense. Grand Canyon, popular dog. Are they going to win or cover or not? I don't know. I lean towards Grand Canyon, but I like the team total over 81.5. I'm pretty confident that the Lopes are going to put some points on the board.
All right, big dog. Good having you. Safe travels to Vegas later this week, where you will be joining us live here for our Saturday and Sunday morning editions of The Sweat next weekend. Excited for that. So we have troops on the ground. Thanks for hanging with us all weekend, folks. We are back 8 o'clock Eastern time next Saturday morning. Enjoy your Sunday.